Things are getting stranger by the day, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. Got so many things to cover in this video. We're going to be talking about the Olympics a little bit. We're going to talk about what Elon Musk said, what's going on with the banking sector. You're not going to believe some of the stuff that's going on there. We're going to get into the nightmare scenario in the housing market we're seeing in Florida and actually a number of cities in real time crashing, and actually a ton of other things. Let's just start here. Now we have, of course, the definitive proof that this whole thing, this opening, ceremony was 100% representing the Lord's Supper. We have here Jonathan Pageau confirming this, saying that there was actually, he says tableau, which means table, I think, in French, because I looked it up. I think he says tableau. He says something like that, but it means table. So the table has a sign right on it that says in French. I'll let him take away and explain what it says.
The scene is clearly referencing the Last Supper. The name of the tableau was a wordplay in French, which is La scène de la Seine à Paris sur la Seine, which means you can't really translate it in French because there's a wordplay in it, which basically, if you translate it into English, it means the scene of the Last Supper on the Seine River.
So you can see right there, they actually had a wordplay that it was literally it had on the table a sign saying it was the Last Supper. And he even goes on to say much more than this. You remember the lady that was in the center? I'm assuming she's a lady. In the center, it was a little bit overweight. She said that she's going to sue anybody who says anything not nice about her, and she just like a blanket lawsuit. She just put in some sort of blanket lawsuit, and then they're going to go find people to sue online that said stuff, right? Check out what she actually said. Apparently she said something, I think it was on Instagram prior to this whole controversy, that makes it even more obvious that's exactly what it was. Let's see, I think it's up here a little bit.
The main person in the middle, the DJ, she posted on Instagram saying that it was the new gay testament, right?
So she said it was the new gay testament, all right? Obviously referring to Scripture, referring to, obviously, the Lord's, Supper. And, of course, afterwards, she's like, no, that's not what it was. The guy who actually directed it or put it on, he's like, no, this is the Feast of the Gods. And I'll get into that next, how actually the one specific painting they refer to was likely inspired by the Lord's Supper as well, by the way. I'll get into that next. We have, of course, The View, talking about this recent controversy. We're talking about the Olympics again. And this opening, of course, scene, them defending the Olympics, saying, no, they didn't mean anything bad by it. It's not a parody, of course, of the Last Supper. This is what they claim. Let's just play a little bit of this, and I'm going to comment and show you what's really going on here, which I haven't seen any channels really say this, but we'll get into it. Check this out.
Painting the Last Supper. Now, organizers said, we're sorry, but, the guy who actually put it all together said it was from the Feast of the
Gods, right? Now, when I did a search a couple days ago about this is what actually came up. This is on Wikipedia. This was the original painting of the Feast of the Gods from 1514 AD. And you'll notice it looks nothing like what we saw at the Olympics. Now, again, they reference a different painting than this one, but just to give you a clarification so you understand where I'm coming from, this was the original. You notice they're just in a random forest, all sitting down like a picnic or something. No table, no halos, none of that, right? This was from 1514. Let me show you. It'll make sense when I explain all this out. So this is the one that they claim that it's after. It's representing this one here from 1635, 1640, about 150 years later, or 130, whatever it is. And it's by Jean van Begelert. You can see here, it actually does look kind of like what we saw at the Olympics. And it also has Dionysus right here. in sort of the center front, right? Now, let me show you something that a lot of people have not noticed. This is what I noticed. This painting, okay, so the first one was from 1515 or something like that. This one was from 1640. Now, notice the Last Supper, the original from Leonardo da Vinci, was from 1495. This was before both of those. And of course, notice there's no halo, but actually a lot of the other versions of this has a halo. So let me show you some. So what I'm trying to indicate is that actually this painting here was inspired by the Lord's Supper. This was made 140 years after the Lord's Supper original painting. And the first version of the Feast of the Gods looked like this. It looked nothing like this. So at least to me, it's super obvious that the later painter was inspired by the Lord's Supper to make it look like this. Okay, that's what I think happened. And then that's the reason why it looks very similar to the Lord's Supper, is because he was inspired by the painting that was from 140 years earlier. Okay, so I think you get the idea. At any rate, so the point is that this is why everyone was thinking this. You have other people. There's commentators from CBC and other just random ABC, NBC, lots of places saying this looked like the Last Supper or Lord's Supper. They all said this. A lot of people said this. Just random people that even thought it was a great opening were saying this. I even showed it in a previous video. There's actually news outlets saying that, yeah, this looked like that's what it was. Actually, this is something I was going to show in the other video and I never got to it. So notice this. This is kind of interesting. We have here Berkshire Hathaway has sold a total of 53 million shares of Bank of America stock, $2.3 billion. So what's interesting about this, we're seeing a ton of CEOs like Warren Buffett selling off all their stocks. And of course, at the same time, we have all the outlets saying, no, everything's great. The economy's great. Inflation's low. Unemployment's low. I got some stuff to show you on that. But the fact is, we see all these CEOs selling, and this happened right before 2020. They start selling all their stuff, and then all hell breaks loose, right, in the economy. And I think we're going to be seeing that very quickly here. We have this one man who predicted this already. He's predicted a number of things that have happened. He predicted what happened, of course, in Paris. We already covered it in a previous video. He predicted what happened to our former prez 2 weeks ago, grazing his ear. He predicted that very accurately. And now one of the other things that was part of that dream was that the economy is going to get so bad it's going to be worse than the Great Depression in the wintertime. Probably this winter, but it's either this winter or next winter. Now, what's interesting is I've seen some information. There's actually an article here, and we're going to get into power, of course, outages as well. I'm going to get into something that will probably happen and why it will happen later on in this year. Okay, but I wanted to show you something. What was I going to show you? Okay, it took me a second to find it. I found it finally. I was going to show you this article here. This is kind of curious, and it actually shows you how I was correct about something I've been saying. 52% of young adults in the U.S. are living with their parents. That's the highest share since the Great Depression. I've been saying this. I've been talking about how prices today are actually worse percentage-wise out of the amount that you have to pay for, like, for instance, a home. A home costs more today as a percentage of the amount of money you make compared to the time during the Great Depression. You actually have to pay more of your paycheck towards a home or an apartment, something you rent, than you did back in the Great Depression. This would explain why people are all living with their parents at a high rate, 52%. And this shows you how actually all these numbers they've been telling you, that the inflation's low, the unemployment's low, all this stuff, shows you that it's not what they're saying. Because if you actually look at the shadow stats, we're at 26% unemployment. And inflation's like 12 or 13% at least. So then you have, of course, states by state, which ones are the most financially distressed. They actually have an article on that as well. And I was kind of surprised to find out that actually the top one is Michigan. And I'm trying to wait till this thing plays.
So when you have a question or a challenge,
pause. All right, so you can see here, Michigan is the most financially distressed. Texas is second, And this kind of makes sense with Texas because so many new people have moved into Texas. Inflation has went crazy there. Prices have went up a ton, and it's putting a lot of stress on those who are already living there. So it's essentially becoming like it, particularly Austin, Texas. But you can see some of the best off states are up here. Apparently Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Iowa are still doing better. But getting into some of this, so of course McDonald's came out with a $5 value meal. They're now keeping it because they have such a bad reputation now. People are thinking that they're so ridiculously high in price with those stories of like $20 Big Macs and stuff in the not so distant past. They're keeping the $5 value meal just so people realize, or so people think at least, that they can get cheap stuff still there. So they're doing it at a loss. They're actually losing money with this deal. They're purposely keeping it so they can somehow maintain a lot of customers coming in the door, even though they're making far less money than they used to. So that's something kind of curious that's going on. We have another company that went out of business. We're seeing bankruptcies left and right. 134-year-old home goods retailer filed for bankruptcy. 70 stores closed. We're seeing a ton of those going on still. We see this really curious story about banks are bracing for consumers to stop paying off their credit cards because they know people have no money to pay off their credit cards. And this is a result of the outlets, these news, of course, outlets, telling everybody the economy is great when it is not. And this makes people have this hope that, oh, I could just use a credit card now because the economy will get better later. And that's why everybody is in a place now to where they can't even pay off their credit card. They're not going to be paying it off. It's just going to be stuck like that. So, at any rate, so there's that. We're going to get into what's going on with. We're going to get into a little bit of the Olympics. There's some new stuff on that. We're going to get into something Andrew Tate said. We're going to get into something Elon Musk said. Something that happened in Philadelphia and much more. First of all, I got to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 3 months worth for $4.97. Cheapest price, like I said, in 4 or 5 years. Honestly, you can hardly get that much food for 1 month for one person in a Kroger or Walmart these days. $4.97 for 3 months worth. And what's going to happen at the end, of course, of this year? I got something to show you on that with power, outages. And I figured out something new. We're going to get into that as well. You're going to definitely want to get this. And it has to do with this company that had the IT outage recently and what happened to certain machines and how that's definitely something they'll probably have that could easily happen at the end of this year. I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it very easily, and it makes total sense when you hear it. You're going to definitely want to get this. Link is in the description. Of course, this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Great-Grandfather Lived Without Electricity, How to Build a Cellar, Do Things Around the House like they did in the old days. Hundreds of pages illustrated. The fact of the matter is, this will very well happen, what I'm talking about. We'll get into, actually, I'll just get into that next after I talk about this stuff. Also, my website, GR Videos. Link is in the description. I have some huge deep dives that we're doing. I'm actually going to put one of these deep dives up on this channel here and my God Rules and God Rules 2 probably next after this video. Really awesome. You're not going to believe this. It's just mind-blowing. And it has to do with something you never heard before. We connect Genesis, we connect the Ugaritic text, we connect the Sumerian text, we connect it to the Greek mythology. We show you how there were certain primordial gods made and gods, and how it all relates to the angels. And we show it like we go into great deal showing how it all maps out perfectly, and how Genesis is just very compact and it doesn't show you all the details. We'll actually show you how you can see it, and we'll show you. It's just amazing. Trust me, it's super amazing. And we show you how all of them are connected. All these stories are connected, and it's just it doesn't look like it is, but once you start researching it, you find it. So we'll get into it. I'm going to put that on my next video, probably on this channel. Really amazing. At any rate, of course, all the other links below, social media, gold and silver. Let's get back to the video. So I was gonna talk about what's going to happen at the end of this year, right? So I wanted to show you this. Where is that at? I got so many windows open. Let me get to it. Okay. Nope, that's not it. It's way over here. Yeah, here we are. Okay, here we go. So, okay, so let's start with this. Let's start with this here. Okay, yeah, we'll start here. We'll start here. This seems like it's not related, but it is. Okay, so you have this story that just came out about Venezuela. There's a bunch of people marching in opposition to who won, of course, the race. Okay? Apparently, a new guy in, and they think that he cheated to get in. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? So apparently, a lot of people in protest to this right now. And then we have, of course, another, let me show you this news story over here. We have, of course, our former prez saying or warning Netanyahu of a third world WAR if he loses. Okay? Now, let me get to the next story so you'll see how this all works together. So then you get over here, and you have this one company that basically where we had the IT outage. It was called Crowd, Strike, right? Delta just said they're going to issue some sort of lawsuit over this to recover the money that they lost during the huge outage, right? Now, why did they have this huge outage? What was that all about? Let me show you this. Notice this here. We have what happened with the power, this IT outage, right? And it affected certain systems. You see this here? Look at the systems it affected. And they're asking questions, why? Why would this affect these systems, right? What does that tell you? Well, what do you expect to happen at this end of this year? Oh, right around the time this occurs, a power outage. Oh my goodness. Oh no. You see what I mean? See how that works? That could have been, like I said, that might have been part of the test. That's what I'm thinking now. And this could cause there to be some weird problem with figuring out who, of course, won, right? You get it? So that is what I'm thinking is part of what they're going to do. Maybe. We'll see what happens, I guess. But then that would indicate we will have some sort of power outage. And who knows how long it would be for. I don't know, man. I'm just saying I think that's kind of curious, and that's kind of evidence towards that, right? Then, of course, we had this. This happened in Philadelphia. Let me show you this. Come on, get back to the beginning.
It's okay.
Just a sec here. I'm trying to show you something on screen. Here we go. So we have this thing. We have this march in Philadelphia. We have those on, of course, left marching with red flags in Philadelphia, as you can see on there on the screen. You can see them right here, 500 plus, all organized. That's kind of curious. Seems like a lot of people are interested in that these days. What does that entail and what does that mean? That's the question. So you have that going on. Then, of course, what happened at the Olympics. Now, this is absolutely ridiculous because, of course, you saw the opening, act. I'm sure you've heard about that. Everyone's talked about that. But what's interesting is it's not only that they represented him in such a disparaging manner, but on top of that, those that are participants in the Olympics, there are two notable people, both from Brazil, that were told not to speak of his name. We're talking Jesus. And we have here, of course, the Christ the Redeemer statue that was on his surfboard, which they required him to remove. And there was also a lady who was a skateboarder who was told not to speak, of course, of her faith if she won. Now, she won bronze. And in protest, what she did is she did sign language saying, "He is the way, the truth, and the life." So that was her in protest, not speaking with her mouth, but using her hands to speak in sign language what she wanted to say. And so it's kind of curious how they're able to represent him wrongly in the beginning of it, but if you try to represent him in a positive manner, you're banned from doing so. You see how that works? So that's what happened. There was a number of people out marching over this in Paris as a result of it. We even had Andrew Tate and his brother Tristan out as well. I think this is Andrew Tate holding this. And you have here Tristan Tate, and they're out, of course, protesting as well, saying they're not going to watch any of it. And of course, all of this stuff was predicted. Well, not that particular stuff, but Certain other things were predicted, like the trains, the railroads being sabotaged, and there being fires. And of course, you had here even, what is this, Notre Dame Cathedral and a number of other buildings that were set on, of course, fire. He predicted all of these things back in April, which is really interesting. He's also the one predicting that we'll have a massive economic crash in the winter, whether it's this winter or next winter, and it'll be so bad it'll take 4 to 8 years to recover. And what we're seeing right now is nothing compared to what it will be. We're talking like total massive crash. Probably worse than the Great Depression, because pretty much right now it's the Great Depression. Honestly, it's pretty much the levels of Great Depression from what I can tell, at least spending wise. It's going to be way worse though when that happens. So you got all that going on. And of course, you had Seline Dion singing there, and she had some issues with her voice. She had some real problems with her voice. And I thought it was really curious that she was in this commercial where she's going through some sort of hospital. And you can see here, this is like, what would you call this? A birthing ward, or whatever you call it, birthing ward. You have here the boys and the girls like that, red and blue, or pink and blue, I mean. And what happens is she takes out some dust, like, I don't know what you call it, some sprinkles, and she blows it on the room, some black sprinkles, something in her hand. I don't know what it was. But what ends up happening is everything changes. Yeah, she has this thing in her hand. Let's see if I can show this. I'm trying to find the spot where yeah, here it is. She blows these sprinkles in the room, and next thing you know, it looks like this. No boys and no girls. All right, so that's kind of curious. That was a commercial that she was in right before she lost her voice. So that's kind of curious. But at any rate, so there's that. You also had power, of course, outages in Paris after they did the opening. There was also other problems too. They also had a massive parade, like floats on the river, and it rained really badly, and you couldn't hear Lady Gaga sing and all this stuff. And there's some other strange things as well, with LeBron James looking strange in a video. There was a bunch of stuff like that that happened as well. And of course, you had a no-fly zone for some reason. Really strange. No, of course, power. You can see that as well. All that happened the day after. And so some people are wondering about that. Then we got, of course, what's going on in Florida. We also have what Janet Yellen said. This is kind of amazing. So you go to Janet Yellen, and she's being accused of manipulating the treasuries. And we have a economist. We have so in this article it says U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen firmly rejected an accusation from the economist Nouriel Roubini that her department has manipulated the issuance of Treasury securities in a way that lowers real borrowing costs across the economy. This is from Bloomberg, and she's denying it. I thought that was really curious because, of course, they've been doing a lot of strange things with the numbers, my friends. They stopped reporting the M2 money supply changes. They use a different inflation formula now, use a different unemployment formula now to recalculate it so it makes it really look really low. They do all these things. Right now, we already have a housing market crashing in numerous cities across America. You have here in Florida, let me show you this. If I can get this thing to stop playing. There we go. Stop playing so I can read this. All right. Florida housing market faces nightmare scenarios as deals collapse. We have people backing out of buying houses at a huge rate, record rate, largest rate ever, according to brokerage Redfin for the month of June. In June, 56,000 home purchase agreements were canceled in the Sunshine State, the equivalent of 15% of all homes that went under contract that month. So 15% backed out after they already said they're going to buy. We have even in Miami, 18%. That's back out after they say they're going to buy it during the inspection process. So the housing market is crumbling at record speeds. And like I said, we had Warren Buffett selling off tons of stocks, knowing that everything's going to basically collapse economically soon here. So you're seeing all this stuff going on. And now they're trying to, and this is kind of what I was talking about with regards to climate change. They're trying to, it's kind of curious, they're trying to improve neighborhoods. This gentrifying means improve neighborhoods. But they're doing so by adding or equipping these homes with very expensive units, like climate friendly air conditioners, climate friendly whatever, in the homes, like sump pumps, et cetera, and they cost a lot more money. And this is causing them to be much more expensive as homes, which means there's a lot less people buying them. People have to settle for much smaller homes than they would ever purchase. As a result of this, they may be improving how a home looks or a neighborhood looks, but no one can afford it, which is leading to people owning, of course, nothing, or owning a lot less. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And at the same time being happy, right? So that's going up. You have, of course, here's another example of what I'm saying. Homeowners insurance premiums rose 21% last year. Climate change is partly to blame. That's why everything's more expensive. That's a part of it. And I don't think that actually saves, of course, the environment. I think it just makes their pocketbooks fatter while yours is thinner. That's basically what it looks like to me. At any rate, so that's my video. I'm kind of want some of you guys to think. We also have Bezos as well, investing in a company to retrofit millions of old buildings with green energy, meaning they know these laws are coming. They've already done it with the new housing. They're going to do it with the old housing next, making everyone pay like $20K just to upgrade their homes. They're going to rake in a ton of money if this goes forward. At any rate, so that's my video. I'm kind of wondering some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.